Hey everyone, my name is Blue and we are back with another ProRevenge story. Revenge so good, it belongs in a Hollywood blockbuster. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing to our channel, and with that, let's get into it. Evening Reddit. Apologies for the length of this in advance, but Bill Shaky I am not, so I'll most likely go off on a tangent. A lot. Possibly constantly, actually. This particular story has just come to a head today, largely thanks to the persistently predictable actions of this story's antagonist, who we'll call F-Head, because that's what he is. Around a year ago-ish, I moved into a new apartment, not in a great part of the city, but could be considered bang average. When I first moved in, I was assured everything would be rosy, and I'd be left to my own devices. Enter F-Head. F-Head is, as his name suggests, a total POS. He has shared custody of his son, which is frankly an oversight of the legal system, but hey. And he absolutely loves to get plastered and scream at the kid, either via phone or in person. The kid is around 13, I think, and his name's not totally important, mainly because the kid's got enough grief. This went on for about 2 or 3 months, so I tried befriending F-Head, mostly because I'm an idiot, but also to find out just what his issue was. Because having headphones in on max volume, listening to heavy metal, and still being able to hear F-Head screaming was becoming an issue, to say the least. I put up with it for a bit, mentioning it in passing to who I guess is my building manager. He's really just a guy that's lived there for years and is mates with the landlord, and he's retired, so can't really blame him for not wanting to get involved. He did mention that F-Head had lived there for about 5 years and had numerous complaints, including the previous tenant who'd moved out because she'd had enough of his BS. He also mentioned that F-Head had shared custody because F-Head's ex was also a bit of a jerk. Like, seriously, that poor kid. But, as such, meant an absolute Christload of social workers were involved, even if they clearly weren't very good at their jobs. Anyways, one day F-Head was screaming at the top of his lungs again, and again, because I'm an idiot, I poked the ceiling with a broom. Just a little tap to say, "Hey friend, just a quick polite note to tell you that the whole effing neighborhood can hear you." Which was greeted by 5 thuds that sounded like F-Head was about to bunker bust clean through the ceiling. This naturally ticked me off, so I knocked on his door, and he simply opened it and told me to go F off. Fair enough, I thought, as I frankly had better stuff to do. So I went for a walk. Upon return, F-Head is putting his bins out and starts to give me grief, which I returned in kind, causing him to square up to me and threaten to kill me. I held my ground and he started going on about respect and stuff. LMAO, no, really, and told me he held all the cards and there was nothing I could do. Unfortunate, but I simply said, if that's how you want to be, then that's how it is, and left him to have his little fit outside. First call was to the police, who took it surprisingly seriously. They came out within an hour, and we sat in the Panda car and discussed all of F-Head's transgressions, a lot of which I had recorded, mainly to WhatsApp to my friends like, "Hey, F-Head is at it again." They took a statement, said there was likely nothing they could do, but they might investigate F-Head on the count of the child abuse and the social worker in place. I then asked them if evidence would help, and they replied it'd save them a lot of time if I could get some, but would need to be recent. Last 3 months okay? Sure, they say, but 3 months is a long time, and he might have changed. No, Mr. Policeman Officer. I mean covering the last 3 months. Excited he was, to say the least. So they brought me to the station to give a statement and to copy all the evidence off my phone. At this point, big shout out to old phones and removable SD cards, as I really didn't want to explain my meme collection. They spent the next 2, maybe 3 months investigating F-Head, as there's a lot of banging to be heard in the videos, which I can only assume is F-Head assuming his final F-Head form. A few months go by, and I'm seeing a lot of "open immediately, do not ignore" type letters arriving in F-Head's name, which I think might be off the social workers, but not sure. I do feel particularly bad about this bit, as being a violently abusive alcoholic, he's not quite smart enough to realize it's me that's making his life suck, because the social are on him like a skid mark on a toilet, and he's just screaming at his kid even more because he thinks the kid has grassed him up. Eventually, the police have everything in place and serve him with some sort of behavioral order or some stuff like that, which frankly wasn't a whole lot, but that was more an aperitif for the real meal the social were about to make. Yesterday, armed with a bunch of evidence, a bunch of people, 2 uniformed officers, and my landlord, they arrived at his flat. Partly because that's the only time my landlord had free, and probably partly because Saturday pay for cops and social workers must be fairly decent. Also partly because he has his kid on weekends. Actually, probably the main reason, now that I think about it. Since F-Head has the kind of voice that makes Brian Blessed sound like a cross between a mime and a church mouse, they can hear everything immediately. They go up into the tight hallways, which is kind of funny because they're all trying to social distance, so it kind of looks like they're queuing up to give F-Head a bollocking in true British fashion. It ended with F-Head being led away in cuffs, because of course he fought back. The guy's an idiot. It's totally in his nature. He's since come back today with a very defeated look on his face. Turns out the behavior order was a bit of a warning, and they'd been watching the house on and off all week. Super glad I gave up smoking weed at this point. And they've heard some of the Dolby Surround phone conversations, and have now charged him with a bunch of stuff I frankly don't understand. I'm not a cop, and I know mostly F all about the law except the ones I don't like, which has had, and will have, several knock-on effects. That's an absolute nightmare. All of it is an absolute nightmare. Especially the Civic with 3-inch pipes, like come on! And that's all the time we have today for this insane ProRevenge story. If you enjoyed it, please consider clicking like, and if you haven't yet, please consider subscribing to our channel. Thanks for listening. Catch you later, everyone.